Hey guys! Tonight we're slipping back to a night long ago, when the stars hung above a city that thought itself eternal. The streets of Rome hum quietly, the air thick with the smell of wood smoke and olive oil. And somewhere in the dark, a goose ruffles its feathers. You probably won't survive this one, not if you were there when the Gauls came knocking. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in from somewhere far away, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far our sleepy little community reaches. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in Rome around 390 BCE, or, as the Romans would later prefer to call it, the early days of destiny. The city is smaller than the empire you picture from your school books. No marble forums yet. No sprawling legions in shining armor, just dusty hills dotted with modest houses, red-tiled roofs, and an attitude that's about 3 sizes too big for the population. Rome is still a teenager of a city, proud, messy, occasionally brilliant, and utterly convinced of its own invincibility. But there's tension in the air tonight. You can feel it even as you stroll past the Tiber River, its waters glinting in the moonlight. Rumors swirl like gnats. A northern tribe, tall and wild-haired, has been spotted crossing the Apennines. The Gauls, Celtic warriors whose helmets gleam with strange patterns and whose language sounds like laughter mixed with thunder. Nobody's sure what they want, but everyone assumes it's bad news. In the taverns, the talk drips with false confidence. They'll never reach us. One old man mutters over his wine. They'll turn back once they see our walls. But his friend, eyes heavy with doubt, replies quietly, "Our walls? They're barely more than garden fences." That's when you realize, this isn't the Rome of the Colosseum and Caesar. This is the Rome that still believes the gods will handle logistics. You walk the narrow streets, where royal lamps flicker in bronze sconces. Somewhere, a dog barks, a high, nervous sound that dies quickly. The night smells of fear dressed up as bravado. Mothers pull their children inside. Shutters close, and the faint clang of armor echoes from a distant guard post. Up on the Capitoline Hill, the temples stand silent, their statues watching over the city like patient, unblinking parents. The priests of Juno, goddess of marriage and protector of Rome, go about their rituals as usual. They tend to her sacred geese, fat, pampered creatures kept in a marble courtyard. To the average Roman, feeding birds when citizens struggle to buy grain seems ridiculous. But the priests insist the goddess must be honored, no matter what. You glance at those geese and can't help but think, they look far too important for their own good. Down below, in the forum, the Senate convenes by torchlight. Their togas ripple in the warm breeze as they argue. Send a delegation. One shouts, "We can negotiate." Another slams his fist on a bench. Negotiate? With barbarians? The debate goes nowhere. As usual, historians still argue whether the Senate's indecision that night doomed the city or if Rome's fate was already sealed. Either way, you can sense it, the slow tightening of the noose, as you stroll past a bakery shutting its doors for the night. You catch the smell of burned flour. The baker looks up at you, his hands dusted white. "You hurt?" he asks softly. You nod, not needing to ask what he means. He shakes his head. "My cousin saw smoke from the north. Villages burning." He pauses, eyes unfocused. "They say the Gauls don't take prisoners." He forces a laugh, but it sounds more like a cough. The streets begin to empty. You make your way toward the Esquiline Hill, one of the quieter parts of the city, where the night feels thicker. Rome seems to hold its breath. Somewhere, a flute plays, a slow, mournful tune that winds through the alleys like smoke. You wonder who could be playing at a time like this. Maybe someone trying to pretend life is still normal. Overhead, the sky glows faintly red. though no one can tell if it's the sunset or something worse. The Tiber's slow murmur sounds like a warning, and you can almost imagine the gods whispering through the breeze. Rome's gods have been generous, so far. But divine patience, like Roman wine, doesn't age well when neglected. You pass by the Temple of Vesta, where the Vestal virgins keep the eternal flame burning. The flame flickers uncertainly, throwing long shadows across the courtyard. One of the priestesses glances up as you pass. It's an ill omen. She murmurs, eyes on the restless fire. When the flame shivers, so does Rome. You almost ask what she means. But her expression tells you she's not in the mood for conversation, or prophecy. You climb a short hill for a better view of the countryside. Beyond the walls, the fields stretch like a sleeping animal, soft and golden. But far off on the horizon, you see it, a faint glow, orange and steady. Campfires. Too many to count. The Gauls have arrived. You stand there for a while. The sound of distant horns carried on the wind. It's a haunting melody, wild and alien, filled with laughter and something close to joy. These invaders aren't sneaking, they're celebrating. You can almost picture them around their fires, drinking from bronze cups, polishing their swords, bragging about what tomorrow will bring. Back in the city, the bells begin to ring, slow, heavy, uncertain. Doors creak open, voices rise, orders are shouted, and suddenly the illusion of safety shatters. You catch a glimpse of soldiers running toward the gates, half-dressed and half-awake, their armor clanking like pots and pans. The air smells of panic and metal. A senator in a crimson-trimmed toga rushes past, calling for calm that no one feels. Children cry. Someone drops a basket of figs, and the fruit rolls across the cobblestones, bright against the dark. The details burn into your memory, the kind of tiny moments that always survive in history's ruins. And yet, above all the noise, the geese in Juno's temple remain serene. They sleep in their marble enclosure, heads tucked under wings, utterly unbothered. You can't help but laugh softly. Maybe they know something we don't. You mutter. A cold wind sweeps through the city, carrying with it the faintest hint of rain, and, perhaps, destiny. You glance once more toward the horizon. The fires seem closer now, brighter. Tomorrow, Rome will wake to its greatest trial yet. You turn toward home, footsteps echoing against the stone, the silence pressing close. Behind you, the first distant drumbeat begins, steady, patient, and merciless. Morning creeps in reluctantly, like even the sun doesn't want to witness what's about to unfold. You wake to the clang of bronze shields and the murmur of thousands of voices. The air feels heavy, as if Rome itself knows that by nightfall, something sacred will break. From your window, you see the faint line of dust rising beyond the northern gate, an omen with legs. The Gauls are coming, and they're not in any hurry. You step outside into chaos disguised as preparation. Men rush in every direction, their armor half-buckled, helmets crooked. Someone drops a javelin and curses. A soldier tries to calm a panicked mule that refuses to move. You sidestep the mess and climb a nearby wall for a better view. From up here, you can see them clearly now, the Gauls, pouring across the plain like a tide of bronze and leather. Their leader, Brennus, rides at the front, broad-shouldered, hair like golden fire, eyes the color of storm clouds. He doesn't look like a monster. He looks like someone who's already decided he's going to win. Historians still argue whether Brennus truly led that invasion himself or if his name later became a kind of mythic shorthand for Celtic fury. Either way, you can tell this man isn't here for sightseeing. You watch as the Roman soldiers scramble to line up outside the walls, forming ranks that look neat from a distance but tremble up close. Rome's army at this time isn't the disciplined machine it will later become. It's a patchwork of farmers, blacksmiths, and the occasional glory-hungry noble. Their shields don't match. Their swords vary in length, You could probably hear their fear from space if satellites existed. The Gauls, on the other hand, march with the eerie rhythm of confidence. Their war horns echo through the valleys, a deep, throaty bellow that feels like it's coming from inside your ribs. They wear bright patterns, blues and reds that make them look like walking murals. Some fight nearly naked, painted with swirls and symbols that shimmer in the sunlight. It's unsettling, beautiful, and a little bit theatrical. Like an army of warriors auditioning for chaos, one soldier beside you mutters, "They look like clowns." His voice shakes. Another replies, "Then let's hope the gods like a good joke." You both laugh. But it's that nervous laugh, the kind people use right before bad things happen. Down at the river, you see the Gauls stop and kneel. For a moment, everything goes quiet. Then they shout in unison. A single sound that splits the morning. The Romans flinch. You flinch. The war has begun. Rome's generals make the first move, sending out a smaller force to intercept them near the river Allia. A few miles north, you join the stream of onlookers, farmers, traders, even priests, who climb nearby hills to watch. It's a strange kind of theater, a city watching its own fate like a live performance. The battle, if you can call it that, is over almost before it starts. The Gauls charge downhill with terrifying speed, screaming and singing all at once. The Roman lines shatter like cheap pottery. You see men throw down their shields and run for the river. Some drown trying to cross it. Others are cut down before they can. The air fills with dust, cries, and the sharp tang of iron. You can't look away. It's not just a defeat, it's humiliation painted on a cosmic scale. Brennus doesn't even bother to pursue the fleeing survivors at first. He just laughs. A deep rolling sound that you can almost hear from where you stand. All roads lead to Rome. You think bitterly. And right now, they're all open, back inside the city. Panic spreads faster than fire. Word arrives, the army is gone. The northern gates are undefended. The Gauls are marching straight for the heart of Rome. Someone rings the temple bells, and the noise ripples across the hills. You feel the vibration under your feet like the heartbeat of a terrified animal. The Senate convenes again. Voices raised and hands shaking. Some want to flee to Veii, a nearby stronghold. Others insist on defending the Capitoline Hill, the highest point in Rome. A natural fortress. The gods will protect us there. One senator cries. Another mutters. The gods have a lot on their plate. You head toward the forum, where families are loading carts with whatever they can carry, bread, jewelry, small statues of household gods. A woman argues with her husband over whether to bring their chicken coop. They lay eggs. She protests. So do the geese. He replies. They both realize how absurd that sounds and fall silent. It's strange what people cling to when the world starts collapsing. Some of the elders refuse to leave. You see them sitting calmly in the Senate house, wearing their finest robes, as if awaiting a visit rather than an invasion. The sight is both noble and heartbreaking. One of them smiles faintly as you pass and says, "If the city must fall, at least it will fall with manners." You make your way up to the Capitoline Hill, following the crowd of soldiers, priests, and terrified civilians. The climb feels endless. From the top, you look down and see the smoke rising from the outskirts, villages burning, fields trampled. The Gauls are closer now, their horns echoing louder with every heartbeat. Someone beside you whispers, "They're here." You turn and see them at the gates, moving like shadows in the sunlight. Brennus lifts his sword in salute, as if to say, "Nice city. Shame if something happened to it." Inside the walls, chaos turns to grim acceptance. The gates close. The people huddle together, clutching their gods and their children. The priests begin chanting, their voices trembling but steady. The geese in Juno's temple squawk indignantly at the noise, their feathers shining white against the dim marble. for reasons nobody understands. Their cries sound almost like laughter. By nightfall, the Gauls have surrounded Rome completely. Their fires glitter across the plains, a ring of red eyes in the dark. The city is quiet now, the kind of silence that sits heavy on your chest. You can smell smoke from the countryside and hear the faint clatter of distant drums. You lie awake on the hill, staring at the stars. Somewhere below, a dog howls. The sound rises and fades, swallowed by the wind. You think about the baker, the senators, the priestess watching the flame. You wonder who's still alive, who's sleeping, and who's praying. The geese settle down for the night, heads tucked, oblivious to the storm gathering just beyond the walls. For now, Rome still stands, but tomorrow, you suspect, will test even the gods' patience, and if history teaches anything, it's that sometimes salvation comes from the least likely creature. The next morning doesn't feel like morning at all, it feels like an afterthought. Like the sun rose just to watch Rome panic. You wake to shouting, metal clanging, and the uneven rhythm of boots on cobblestone. The Gauls are in sight now, camped so close you can smell their cook fires. Smoke curls above their tents like mocking fingers. You wander the streets, trying to make sense of it all. Rome, the city that once bragged about conquering its neighbors, now looks like a frightened village pretending to be a capital. People rush past carrying bundles, chickens, and occasionally each other. The air hums with desperation. At the Forum, the Senate meets again. But it's not the polished assembly of calm deliberation you've seen before. The marble floor echoes with raised voices. We must send envoys. One cries, no, we must fortify. Another shouts back. The arguments swirl like dust storms, no beginning, no end. You can almost hear the city's confidence cracking. A young senator named Marcus Fabius stands and calls for silence. Our army is gone, he admits, his voice steady but pale. The Gauls are at our gates. We must decide, do we flee or fight? The room erupts. Some senators pound their staffs, insisting that abandoning Rome would offend the gods. Others argue that survival, not pride, should guide them. You can feel the weight of centuries pressing on this one indecisive moment. Historians still argue whether the Senate's hesitation sealed the city's doom or if they simply had no good choices left. Either way, the debate is pure theater, lots of noise. No action. You leave the building before someone decides to take a vote on whose panic is most efficient. Outside, a group of citizens gathers near the Temple of Saturn, clutching charms and whispering prayers. One woman has smeared ash on her forehead. A boy clings to her tunic, staring wide-eyed at the horizon. You catch his gaze and try to smile. But the words die before reaching your mouth. What comfort can you offer when even the gods seem to be holding their breath? Across the square, soldiers try to organize an evacuation to the Capitoline Hill. You follow the stream of people, priests carrying relics, mothers balancing baskets, a few stray goats bleating indignantly. The smell of sweat and fear mixes with incense from nearby shrines. Someone drops a statue of a household god, and the head snaps off. A bad omen. Everyone agrees. You try not to step on it. Halfway up the hill, you glance back. The northern gate is barely holding. You can see the Gauls moving in the distance, columns of men, glittering with spears and painted shields. They march like they've been rehearsing this for weeks. Rome's few remaining soldiers stand ready. But they look small. Their armor mismatched and their expressions vacant. A centurion shouts orders, trying to sound confident. Hold the gate. Reinforcements are coming. But everyone knows that's a lie. There are no reinforcements, just more citizens. More prayers. More hopeless courage. A merchant beside you mutters, if the gods love Rome, they've got a funny way of showing it. You almost laugh. But it sticks in your throat. As the afternoon drags on, the sounds of battle begin, metal clashing, men shouting. The dull thud of bodies hitting earth. You can't see much from the hill. But the noises tell the story well enough. The Gauls fight like wildfire, loud, fast, unstoppable. Rome's defenses crumble faster than bread in wine. By sunset, smoke pours from the lower city. The wind carries the smell of burning grain and cedar beams. You cover your mouth as ash drifts up the hill like grey snow. Below, you can see the Gauls spilling through the streets, looting houses, kicking open doors. The shouts of triumph blend with screams of fear. It's chaos, brutal, pitiless, and eerily methodical. The capital is now the city's last hope. You and the others pull up ladders, block stairways with rubble, and set guards on every corner. Someone suggests praying again, and no one objects. The temple bells ring faintly, their sound drowned by the rising roar below. In the fading light, the geese in Juno's temple start honking nervously. Their feathers glow golden in the firelight. And for a moment, the sight is almost beautiful. A soldier scoffs. We're starving. And the birds eat better than us. But an old priest snaps back. Those birds are sacred. They're under Juno's protection. The soldier rolls his eyes. Then maybe Juno should lend them a sword. You can't help but smirk at that. Though the humor feels paper thin, night falls. You huddle near a broken wall with a few others, watching the flames crawl through the city below. The crackling fire almost sounds like whispers. Someone says the senators who stayed behind refused to flee, sitting proudly in their chairs as the Gauls entered. Another says the Gauls killed them instantly, another insists they were spared for their bravery. History will twist this into legend. But right now, you just hope it's over quickly for them. Then comes the eerie stillness, the kind that hums louder than any noise. The Gauls have taken the city. From your vantage point, you see them spreading out like ants, their torches flickering between buildings. Occasionally, a burst of laughter echoes upward. Coarse, confident, victorious. Rome, the city that once claimed the favor of the gods, lies silent beneath them. Only the capital remains untouched, glowing faintly in the moonlight like an island above a dark sea. You wonder if the gods are watching or if they've already looked away. Beside you, a young guard whispers, "What if this is the end?" His voice trembles, and you can see his knuckles whitening on the hilt of his sword. You don't answer, because you're thinking the same thing. A priest begins a low chant, invoking Juno's name. The others join in, their voices rising in waves. The sound fills the air, mingling with the distant crackle of fire and the occasional honk of the temple geese. The combination is strange, half sacred, half absurd. But it's something. And right now, something feels like hope. Down below, Brennus stands on the steps of a burning villa, watching the city smolder. His shadow stretches long behind him, distorted by the firelight. He raises a hand, and the noise quiets. Then, slowly, he laughs, a low, satisfied sound that rolls up the hill like thunder. You pull your cloak tighter and look toward the capital's temple, where the geese sleep in their marble pen. You'd better have some miracles tucked under those wings. You whisper. One of them blinks lazily at you, unimpressed, and maybe that's the strange comfort of it all. The city burns. The future wavers. And yet those birds, fat, spoiled, and divine, carry on as if nothing can touch them. Maybe they're right, because in a few days, when despair deepens into silence, one of them will make a sound that changes everything. By dawn, the smell of ash clings to everything, the walls, the air, even your skin. The city below the Capitoline Hill is unrecognizable. Smoke rises in slow, lazy curls where proud temples once stood. Roofs have collapsed. Statues have toppled. And streets that used to echo with market chatter now lie quiet under a thin layer of grey dust. Rome has fallen. You lean over a low wall and stare at the devastation, your eyes stinging from the smoke. The Gauls move through the ruins like scavengers. their armor gleaming dully in the morning light. They're methodical, searching, looting, laughing. You watch one group pry bronze plates from a temple door while another chases a runaway pig through the rubble. Somehow, that detail, grown men in battle paint chasing livestock, feels like the cruelest joke of all. Inside the capital, the mood is brittle. Everyone moves quietly, speaking in low voices as though afraid the city might hear. A senator, his toga smudged with soot, whispers, "So this is how Rome ends? Not with thunder, but with geese." The others glare at him, but no one bothers to disagree. You wander the narrow paths between the makeshift tents, where families huddle together under blankets. Food is already scarce. The soldiers count rations with grim precision. 3 days left. One mutters. Maybe 4 if the gods are generous. You glance toward the temple of Juno. The geese there preen themselves, well-fed and oblivious, like divine royalty in a starving court. Down below, the Gauls begin their rampage in earnest. You can hear their horns echo through the streets, followed by bursts of laughter and shouts. The sound of smashing wood and tearing metal fills the air. Historians still argue whether the Gauls truly burned Rome deliberately or if the fires spread accidentally as they looted. Either way, the result is the same: flames licking up the sides of temples, smoke blotting out the sky, the Tiber glowing red beneath the reflection. From your perch on the hill, you watch helplessly. Flames devour the Forum, crawl across the Palatine, leap from one roof to another. Occasionally, you think you hear someone crying out, but the noise is swallowed by the roar of burning timber. You turn away, unable to watch, but the glow seeps into your mind anyway. It's the kind of image you'll never scrub clean. A soldier nearby tries to lighten the mood. "Well," he says, "at least it's warmer now." No one laughs. The Senate convenes one last time in the temple hall. Smoke drifting through the open windows. The air smells faintly of incense and despair. "We must not surrender," one insists. "Rome's heart still beats on this hill." Another replies, "Rome's heart is coughing up smoke." The argument circles again and again until even the gods seem bored of listening. Eventually, they settle into silence. There's nothing left to discuss. The lower city is lost. The Capitoline is all that remains. That night, you climb to the highest terrace and sit beside a young guard named Gaius. He's polishing his sword, though there's little point. "You ever seen anything like this?" he asks. You shake your head. "No. And I hope I never do again." He nods, gazing out over the burning ruins. "You know, they say Rome was founded by a wolf. Maybe we should have kept more of those around." You smile faintly. "Or fewer politicians." Somewhere below, you hear the faint sound of singing. At first, you think it's Romans praying. But the rhythm is different, wild, rhythmic, almost joyful. The Gauls are celebrating. You imagine them dancing around their fires, toasting their victory with stolen Roman wine. Their laughter mingling with the crackle of burning homes. A strange calm settles over you. The worst has already happened. What's left now is endurance. You close your eyes, trying to remember what the city looked like before: the bustling markets, the chariot wheels rattling on stone, the smell of fresh bread. It feels like a dream fading too quickly to catch. By morning, the air is thick with haze. The sun struggles through, painting everything in pale orange. The Gauls move less now, tired from the night's destruction. Some sleep on temple steps. Others feast amid the ruins. You can see them lifting goblets, laughing, even playing dice with Roman coins. The sight makes your stomach twist. Rumors ripple through the camp on the hill. Some claim the Gauls are negotiating, others say Brennus plans to starve you out. They'll get bored. One man insists. They're savages, they can't sit still. But you can tell Brennus isn't leaving until Rome bows. His army may be wild, but his patience is colder than marble. You watch the priests carry offerings to Juno's temple, tiny bowls of barley, drops of wine, whispered prayers. The geese strut proudly among them, heads held high, eyes bright. One even nips at a soldier's sandal, earning a curse and a nervous laugh. That one's got attitude, someone says. The priest scolds them both. Show respect. The goddess sees through her birds, it's absurd. But in a city that's lost almost everything, faith in a goose feels like one of the few things left standing. That evening, as dusk falls, you walk the perimeter of the hill. Torches flicker along the walls, casting long shadows. Below, the Gauls' fires form a ring of glowing eyes. Every now and then, you catch a glimpse of movement, figures prowling the ruins, searching for something or someone left behind. A cold wind rises. You pull your cloak tighter and glance toward the temple. The geese are restless tonight, pacing, muttering softly to one another. The priests whisper that the goddess is uneasy. You try not to think about what that means. As darkness deepens, a horn sounds from below, a long, low note that seems to crawl up your spine. Brennus is calling to his warriors. You can't see what he's planning, but the energy shifts. The fires dim, voices hush, and for the first time, the night feels alive with intention. You retreat to the inner courtyard where the others huddle near dying fires. Someone hands you a chunk of stale bread, which you accept gratefully. The geese waddle nearby, their eyes glinting in the torchlight. They get better rations than we do. Gaius jokes, biting into his own crust. You grin weakly. Maybe they'll share if we're nice. No one sleeps much that night. Every sound seems louder, the wind, the creak of wood, the faint rustle of feathers. You close your eyes and imagine Juno herself standing guard, one hand on her geese, the other raised toward the stars. It's a comforting thought, even if it's a fragile one. Below, the Gauls' fires burn steady through the darkness. Brennus waits, Rome waits, and somewhere in between, a small flock of divine birds dozes peacefully, unaware that their moment of destiny is just around the corner. Dawn creeps in pale and nervous. You wake to the clatter of armor, the whisper of weary prayers, and the low murmur of people trying to sound brave. The air on the Capitoline hill tastes like smoke and iron. Somewhere below, a raven croaks, a sound that feels too fitting. You stretch, your body aching from the hard stone floor. The siege has begun. You join the slow, tense movement toward the edge of the hill. The first thing you notice is how small the city looks now, what's left of it. Anyway, below you, the ruins of Rome spread like a dark scar across the land. The Gauls are everywhere, scattered among the rubble, their campfires still smoldering. Some are cooking breakfast, others sharpening blades. They've settled in, comfortable as cats after a hunt. The Romans have withdrawn completely to the Capitoline, dragging up food, water, and whatever supplies they could salvage before the gates fell. There isn't much. You see soldiers stacking sacks of grain and amphorae of wine in the temple courtyard. A centurion counts them with a grim look. 2 weeks. He mutters. If we ration hard. You're not sure if he means food or morale. Around you, people whisper prayers. A woman kneels beside a cracked statue of Jupiter, touching its base as though it can still hear. The gods feel distant now, polite, but uninvolved. A few of the younger soldiers crack jokes to break the tension. At least the view's good, one says, gazing out over the burning city. Another replies, you can almost see my house. Oh wait. No, you can't. The laughter is brief but real. You help carry water jars up to the temple of Juno, where the priests tend the sacred geese. The marble courtyard smells faintly of hay and divinity. The birds are absurdly calm, waddling around like they own the place. One honks at you indignantly when you get too close. You bow slightly. My apologies, Your Holiness. The priest overseeing them nods approvingly. The goddess appreciates reverence. He says seriously. You bite back a grin. That's when you notice something strange. The geese are being fed far better than anyone else. Fresh grain. Even a little honeyed bread. Shouldn't we be saving that for the people? You ask. The priest looks horrified. Blasphemy. If the goddess's messengers go hungry, Rome's protection weakens. You can't tell if he's joking. He isn't. Still, a part of you finds comfort in their presence. The geese represent continuity, ritual, faith. Something older than fear. They don't understand defeat. Only the next meal. By midday, the Gauls test the hill's defenses. You watch as a group of them climbs the lower slopes. Shields raised. Shouting insults in a language you can barely understand. The Romans hurl rocks and spears down from the walls. The attackers scatter, retreating with curses and laughter. It's more of a tease than a real assault. They know they have time. That evening, you help fortify the walls, piling rubble, reinforcing weak spots, setting traps where the path narrows. The work is exhausting, but it keeps your mind off hunger. A few of the soldiers hum to themselves. Soft tunes that drift like smoke in the dark. When night falls, Rome's ruins disappear under a blanket of mist. The Gauls' campfires flicker below. A constellation of earthly stars. You find yourself staring at them, wondering what they're talking about. What stories they'll tell of this conquest. Do they feel like victors or caretakers of a city already half dead? Historians still argue whether Brennus truly meant to stay or was merely waiting for Rome to surrender. His motives, like the smoke rising from the ruins, are impossible to grasp. A messenger arrives with grim news: the wells are running low. Water rationing begins immediately. Bread grows harder. Even the temple candles are being reused. Life becomes a careful rhythm of silence and survival. One night, as you sit beside the wall, a small sound startles you, a faint honk from the temple courtyard. It echoes oddly in the stillness, clear and almost cheerful. Shh, someone hisses. You'll give away our position. But it's not a person. It's one of Juno's geese, stretching its wings, utterly unconcerned with stealth. You can't help but chuckle quietly. Guess the goddess isn't worried about subtlety. Days bleed together. The sun rises and sets on a city that feels like it's holding its breath. People grow thinner, quieter. The air smells of smoke and unwashed bodies. And yet, somehow, there's a rhythm to it all. Wake, guard, ration, pray, repeat. A soldier named Livia, yes. A woman in armor, rare but not unheard of, shares a piece of stale bread with you one evening. You think we'll make it? She asks, chewing slowly. Depends. You reply. On how generous those birds feel. She snorts. If the fate of Rome rests on poultry, we're doomed. You grin. Don't knock divine poultry. They've got connections. You spend your nights listening. Sometimes, it's the distant laughter of Gauls. Sometimes, it's whispers of your fellow Romans, dreams of rescue, memories of better meals. And sometimes, it's just the geese, muttering softly to one another in their marble home. Like priests rehearsing hymns. One evening, you overhear two senators debating quietly. Perhaps, one says, we should surrender before the people starve. The other shakes his head. And give the barbarians the pleasure of it? Never. His voice trembles slightly, betraying the fear beneath his pride. You think about saying something but don't. Pride is all that's keeping most of them upright. As the night deepens, you walk the perimeter again. The moon casts silver light across the stones. Somewhere below, a Gaulish horn calls out, a low, haunting note that seems to vibrate through your bones. You glance toward the temple. The geese are awake, their eyes gleaming in the darkness. For a moment, you imagine they're listening too, waiting. When you finally lie down, exhaustion presses you flat. You close your eyes and see flashes of fire, hear echoes of laughter and steel. Sleep doesn't come easily anymore. Even dreams feel rationed. But before you drift off, You hear one last sound, the soft shuffle of feathers. The faintest honk. Like a heartbeat in the dark. You smile. Absurdly comforted. The world may be ending. But at least someone's keeping watch. Days turn to a slow grind of hunger and monotony. You wake each morning to the same dull rhythm, wood creaking. Soldiers muttering. The distant cries of Gauls echoing up the hill. The siege has become a routine. Which is somehow worse than chaos. At least chaos feels alive. This feels like waiting for the gods to flip a coin. The capital smells of sweat, oil, and faint incense. Water is rationed to a single ladle per person each day. Bread is thinner now, stretched with crushed beans and whatever weeds can be found on the hilltop. You chew it slowly, more out of habit than hope of satisfaction. The priests claim fasting pleases the gods. You're not sure the gods would want this particular offering, it tastes like regret. Still, you do what everyone else does. You endure. Below, the Gauls have grown lazy. You can see them lounging around their fires, gambling, polishing their weapons, and occasionally shouting up insults. They know you're trapped. Sometimes they send a few men to test the lower slopes. But the defenders on the hill drive them back easily. It's all theater, no one expects a real breakthrough yet. You pass your time helping the sentries repair the barricades and fetching what little water remains from the cistern. Each trip feels longer. The air is dry. Your tongue feels like leather. And even the birds seem quieter. Except, of course, the geese. The sacred geese of Juno have become something of a running joke among the defenders. They strut around their marble pen like royalty. Fat and glossy. Cooing softly as priests fuss over them. You pass them often. And they always seem to be watching you, judgmental. Curious. Maybe even smug. One evening, as you deliver a bucket of water to the temple, a young priest named Ilius greets you. His robe is spotless despite the grime everywhere else. The goddess's messengers are restless. He says, frowning. They sense something. You peer at the birds, who are currently preoccupied with grooming. They sense dinner time. You reply. Ilius looks scandalized. Mock not the divine. These geese will guard us when men cannot. You almost laugh. But his conviction is unsettling. He truly believes it. And perhaps that faith, absurd as it sounds, is what keeps everyone from collapsing. That night, the sky turns a dull bronze, the color of old coins. You sit on the wall with Gaius and Livia, watching the smoke drift lazily from the Gaulish camp. Gaius tosses a pebble into the dark. You think they'll just give up and go home? He asks. No. Livia says flatly. They'll wait until we're too weak to lift a sword. She stretches, bones cracking. Or until we eat those blessed birds. You grin. Blasphemy. Juno would strike you down. Livia smirks. If she doesn't feed us first, humors become your last weapon, sharp, small, and occasionally effective. As days pass, the city below fades further into memory. The smell of rot drifts upward as the fires die down. Occasionally, a pack of dogs scavenges through the ruins. Their howls echo through the night like ghosts. One evening, you spot a figure moving among the rubble, tall, cloaked, and solitary. You blink, and he's gone. Brennus. Someone whispers beside you. The demon of the north. Historians still argue whether Brennus was a ruthless conqueror or a shrewd opportunist. Some claim he admired Rome's resilience, others say he despised it. But to you, he's become more myth than man, an echo of inevitability wearing human skin. The priests organize a nightly ritual now, candles, chants, and soft hymns to Juno. You attend one evening, more for the light than the faith. The temple glows faintly, and the geese waddle among the worshippers like self-appointed acolytes. Ilius lifts his hands. Great Queen, protect thy city, thy hill, thy chosen. His voice trembles, not with fear but with belief. It's oddly comforting. You whisper a quiet amen, just in case. But outside, reality sharpens its claws. The Gauls begin cutting off the last supply lines. No one can sneak out anymore. The cistern water turns stale. You start noticing how often people glance toward the geese, not with reverence now, but calculation. There are only so many days a man can look at a plump, well-fed bird and think of holiness instead of hunger. One morning, as you help Gaius patch a wall, he mutters, "If this keeps up, we'll be praying to roasted goose by next week." You laugh, but your stomach growls in agreement. Let's hope the goddess likes fasting as much as we do. Then comes a rare moment of beauty. At sunset, the wind clears the smoke, and for the first time in weeks, you can see beyond the city, green hills, olive groves, even a faint glimmer of the Tiber winding like silver thread. For a heartbeat, Rome looks eternal again. The air smells almost sweet. She'll survive. Livia says softly beside you. She always does. You nod. Maybe she's right. That night, you dream of water, cold, clear, endless. You wake to the sound of wings flapping in the temple courtyard. The geese are restless again, pacing and muttering. The priests whisper nervously, interpreting omens like weather forecasts. A sign? One murmurs. Juno warns us. You don't know what of. But the hair on your arms prickles. By now, the Gauls have grown impatient. You can feel it in the rhythm of their camp, more movement, more shouting. They're planning something. Everyone senses it. Even the birds. The tension hums like a drawn bowstring, as night descends. You sit by the wall again, looking out over the ghost of Rome. The fires below flicker like dying stars. Somewhere in the dark, a Gaulish horn sounds, a low, mournful note that seems to stretch forever. You grip your cloak tighter, then, faintly, you hear a strange sound, stones shifting, metal scraping, a muffled grunt. You freeze, listening. Nothing. Maybe it's the wind. Or maybe it's the beginning of something worse. You turn toward the temple, where the geese have gone utterly silent. Their stillness feels louder than any noise. You whisper to yourself, if you really are divine, now's your moment. The geese blink at you, serene and unbothered. Typical. You settle against the cold stone, exhaustion creeping in. The night stretches on, endless and heavy. Somewhere beneath the surface, fate is sharpening its claws, waiting for the right moment to strike, and when it does, it won't come from the priests, the soldiers, or even the gods. It'll come from feathers and instinct, from the one sound that no one expects salvation to wear. The morning light is pale, almost shy, filtering through a thin veil of mist that hangs over the Capitoline hill. You wake to the soft shuffle of sandals and the low murmur of priests beginning their daily rituals. The city below is quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that hums with unspoken tension. But up here, in the temple of Juno, there's movement, purpose, even a little ceremony. You find yourself drawn toward the sound of cooing and feathers. The sacred geese of Juno are restless again, pacing their marble courtyard like anxious guards. Their enclosure sits beside the temple's main steps, when a statue of the goddess watches over them, regal, serene, unbothered by siege or starvation. The priests believe the birds are extensions of her spirit. You're not sure about that. But you do know one thing, these are no ordinary geese, they're magnificent. Really, tall, white, and proud, with sharp eyes that gleam like polished bronze. Even now, when food is scarce and morale lower than the Tiber's banks, they're plump and glossy. You can practically hear the rumbling stomachs of the soldiers who pass by. Pretending not to look too long, you help a priest named Ileus clean their water troughs. He hums a soft hymn while he works. His movements gentle, reverent. The goddess's messengers must always be pure, he says, glancing at you. Their song carries to her ears. You raise an eyebrow. Song? You mean the honking? He frowns. Do not mock. Even divine language can sound strange to mortal ears. You stifle a grin. If you say so. Ileus. Though I'm pretty sure that one just cursed me out, Ileus pretends not to hear. But you spot the twitch at the corner of his mouth. Humor, it seems, is the only heresy that still brings comfort. Later that morning, the Senate convenes again. What's left of it? Anyway. You linger near the edge of the gathering, pretending to sweep dust while listening in. The debate is fierce. Some argue the geese should be slaughtered to feed the defenders, others insist they are too sacred to touch. An older senator, voice shaking with hunger, pounds his staff on the floor. The gods have had their fill. Let Rome live. But the high priest of Juno stands tall and unmoved. Touch them, and you doom us all. He warns. They are our covenant with the goddess. Historians still argue whether this moment truly happened, whether the debate over divine poultry was genuine or dramatized later by Roman chroniclers desperate to weave faith into their survival story. But standing there now, watching men starve while birds are fed honeyed grain, you can believe it. By noon, the air hums with heat and flies. You sit beside Livia on the temple steps, both of you watching the priests feed the geese. If I ever get out of this, she mutters, I'm opening a bakery. I'll name the first loaf after one of those birds. You smirk. The goose of glory? More like divine roast. A laugh escapes you before you can stop it. The sound feels good, almost rebellious. As the day drifts into evening, you notice something different. The geese aren't just restless, they're alert. Every few minutes, they stop preening and stare toward the edge of the hill. Necks stretched, bodies still. It's unsettling. Like they're listening to something you can't hear. Ileus notices too. He drops his broom and frowns. They sense movement below. You peer over the wall. All you see is darkness. Smoke from the Gaulish camp curls upward in lazy ribbons. Maybe rats? You suggest. Ileus shakes his head. No. Men. The goddess whispers through them. You resist the urge to roll your eyes. But something about his certainty sticks with you. The air feels charged. Like the pause before a thunderclap. That night, you take second watch. The moon is thin. The stars dim. The city below sleeps uneasily. Its ruins glowing faintly under the silver light. You pace the wall slowly. Cloak pulled tight against the chill. Somewhere behind you, a goose honks softly. Like it's talking in its sleep. You can't help but think about the irony. Rome, the mighty, defended by birds. The same people who built roads, aqueducts, and empires now rely on creatures who can't go 5 minutes without arguing over breadcrumbs. It would almost be funny, if it weren't so tragic. Still, as ridiculous as it sounds, the geese give people something to believe in. They're proof that the gods haven't entirely abandoned the city. Faith, after all, isn't always logical. It's something you cling to when logic collapses. The night deepens. You lean on your spear, watching the shadows shift along the base of the hill. Every so often, you catch a flicker of movement, but it could just be your imagination. The Gauls have been quiet for days. Too quiet. That's what unsettles you most. The geese murmur again. Feathers rustling softly. Their voices carry across the still air. Low and rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. You find it oddly soothing. You close your eyes for just a moment. When you open them again, the moon has shifted, and a cold draft slips through the stones. The geese are awake, every one of them, necks extended, eyes fixed on the shadows below. The priests, asleep nearby, don't stir. But the birds do not blink. You whisper, "What do you see?" Of course, they don't answer. But one of them takes a step toward the wall. Wings half raised, feathers trembling. You follow its gaze. And there, just for an instant, you catch the faintest glimmer of movement. Metal, maybe. Or eyes. Your pulse quickens. You scan the hillside again. But the darkness swallows everything. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's the hunger making you see things. Still, the birds don't relax. They stay poised, silent. Statues made of breath and instinct. You back away slowly, heart pounding. The echo of their stillness burning into your chest. You think of Ilius's words, they sense movement below, maybe tonight. That isn't just superstition. You glance once more at the marble statue of Juno. Her expression serene, unreadable. The air feels heavier now, like the city itself is holding its breath. You whisper a prayer, not to the goddess, but to the geese. If you really are messengers, keep us safe tonight. The largest of them tilts its head, as if acknowledging you. Its eyes gleam like tiny torches in the dark. Somewhere below, a stone shifts. The sound is faint, almost tender. The geese do not move, not yet. The night folds over Rome like a heavy cloak. The fires below have burned low, leaving the Gaulish camp in deep shadow. From the Capitoline hill, you can barely make out their shapes, small movements. Flickers of light swallowed by the mist. The city is sleeping. If sleep is what you can call the restless drifting between hunger and dread, you walk the wall. Your steps soft. Your breath visible in the cool air. The stone beneath your hands feels damp, as though the hill itself is sweating. A single torch burns nearby, its light trembling in the breeze. Somewhere behind you, the geese rustle. You glance back. They're awake again, every one of them. Not honking this time. Not restless or pacing. Just watching. Eyes bright as coins. Necks stretched. Perfectly still. The hairs rise on your arms. You whisper to Livia, who's standing guard a few paces away. They're staring again. She squints toward the temple. Maybe they see ghosts. I'd be staring too if I was stuck on this hill with nothing to eat but prayers. You want to laugh, but the tension in your stomach won't let you. Something's wrong. You can feel it in the quiet. In the way the world seems to lean forward and listen. You scan the slopes below. For hours. There's nothing. Then, movement. A flicker of shadow. Subtle but deliberate. You lean forward. Heart pounding. There it is again, shapes gliding through the mist. Silent. Careful. Men. The Gauls are climbing. You swallow hard. They're coming. You whisper. Livia stiffens. Are you sure? You nod. They're scaling the north face. Look there. She peers into the dark. And when her eyes catch what yours have seen, she exhales slowly. They're good. She murmurs. Too good. No noise. No torches. It's true. The Gauls move like ghosts, using the fog for cover. They've chosen the steepest side of the hill. The one everyone assumed too dangerous to climb. They're not attacking the walls, they're sneaking over them. Livia grips her spear. We need to raise the alarm. Not yet. You whisper. If we shout too soon, they'll scatter and try again somewhere else. We need to know how close they'll get. It's risky. But hesitation is sometimes the only weapon left when numbers fail. You crouch low and watch. The Gauls climb higher. Boots slipping on loose stones. Hands gripping roots and cracks. Their armor glints faintly whenever the moon breaks through the mist. You can see their leader now, tall, muscular, his beard braided, his eyes glinting with purpose. He raises a hand to signal silence. The line of warriors behind him halts. Barely breathing, you and Livia exchange a glance. If they reach the wall unseen, it'll be over before dawn. Below you, a rock shifts loose, clattering down the slope. The sound freezes everyone, Romans and Gauls alike. The silence that follows is sharp enough to cut. Then, miraculously, no one reacts. The Gauls resume their climb. Slow and steady. You can see their fingers gripping the ledges now. Their shadows stretching closer. You whisper to Livia. Go. Wake the others quietly. She hesitates. Then nods. Slipping into the darkness. You stay where you are. Gripping your spear so tightly your knuckles ache. The Gauls are almost at the top. You can hear their breathing now. Soft and ragged. The leader's hand reaches up, fingers curling over the last stone ledge. And that's when it happens. A single sound slices through the night. Sharp, piercing, alive. A goose, its honk bursts out of the silence like a thunderclap. Then another. Then a chorus, wild, furious, relentless. The temple courtyard explodes with noise. Wings beat the air. Feathers whirl. And divine outrage fills the sky. The priests wake first, stumbling from their chambers. Then the guards. Then everyone. Within seconds. The entire hill is alive with shouts, clattering weapons, and scrambling feet. You don't hesitate. You leap toward the wall. Spear ready. Below, the Gauls freeze. Caught mid-climb. Eyes wide. The sudden cacophony has shattered their stealth. To arms. You shout. Voice roar. They're here. Soldiers pour from their shelters. Shields clanging. Livia appears beside you. Sword drawn. Grin feral. Told you those birds were useful. The first Gaul hauls himself over the wall. You thrust your spear into his shoulder, sending him tumbling backward with a snarl. Another appears. Then another. Steel flashes in the moonlight, all around you. The defenders rally. Arrows fly. Rocks are hurled. The night turns into chaos, battle cries mixing with the relentless honking of the sacred geese. The birds, still flapping madly, seem to scream divine alarm. The Gaulish leader tries to rally his men, shouting in his rough northern tongue. He makes it halfway over the wall before Livia meets him with her sword. Their blades clash, sparks flying. Back to your camp, barbarian, she snarls. The fight is brutal and brief. The Gauls, realizing their ambush is ruined, start to retreat. Some slip, some fall. A few are dragged down the slope by gravity and panic. The Romans chase them to the edge, hurling curses and stones until the darkness swallows them completely. Then, silence again. You lean on your spear, chest heaving, every muscle trembling. The air smells of sweat, blood, and feathers. The geese, still honking proudly, march along the courtyard like conquering heroes. Livia wipes her sword on her tunic and laughs, a low, exhausted sound. I take it back, she says between breaths. I'll never eat another goose in my life. You grin weakly. Better hope the goddess heard that. Below, the Gauls retreat, their shouts fading into the mist. Above, the first faint blush of dawn touches the horizon. Rome still stands. Historians still argue how much truth lies in this story. Did the sacred geese truly save the city? Or was it a later invention, polished into legend by grateful survivors? Maybe. Maybe not. But as you stand there, watching the sun rise over the battered hill, it doesn't matter, because tonight, the gods, or their feathered messengers, chose to scream for Rome. And that scream turned the tide. You turn toward the temple, where the birds have settled again, feathers ruffled but proud. Not bad. You whisper. Not bad at all. One of them honks softly, almost smugly. Before tucking its head under a wing, you laugh. A real one this time. Full and unrestrained. Yeah. You say. Sleep well, heroes. The dawn that follows feels brighter than any morning in weeks. You stand at the wall, watching the pale gold light seep over the city's ruins, spreading warmth across shattered rooftops and smoke-streaked stone. For the first time since the siege began, Rome feels alive again. The air still smells of iron and ash. But beneath that, something lighter. Relief. You glance toward the temple of Juno. The priests are already gathered there, fussing over the geese as though they were emperors reborn. One bird preens proudly atop the temple steps, chest puffed, eyes gleaming with a kind of smug holiness. You can't help but smile. Look at them, you say to Livia, who leans beside you, still wiping the dried blood from her sword. They know what they did. Livia snorts. They're demanding tribute already. Probably expect a golden pond next. You laugh. low and tired. Wouldn't be the strangest thing Rome's worshipped. Down below, you can see the Gauls regrouping. Their camp is restless now, men shouting, shields clattering, arguments breaking out. They hadn't expected to fail last night. The hill, once an afterthought, now looks to them like a fortress guarded by angry gods and louder birds. Ilius, the young priest, passes by carrying a basket of grain. He stops and bows toward the temple. The goddess is pleased, he says, smiling faintly. Her messengers have spoken. You raise an eyebrow. Spoken? They screamed like banshees. He frowns, scandalized. They sang of Rome's deliverance. You chuckle. Sure. Let's call it that. The truth is, no one can stop talking about the birds. Everywhere you go, you hear it, the story already swelling into myth. Soldiers slap each other's backs and reenact the honking, adding increasingly dramatic details. I swear. One bit a Gaul on the nose. Someone claims. No. No. Another corrects. They formed a line and charged down the hill. You roll your eyes. But part of you enjoys the absurdity. After weeks of fear and starvation, laughter feels like oxygen. The Senate meets again that afternoon. You listen from outside the assembly hall, half curious, half dreading. The senators argue over what to do next. Should they reward the priests? The geese? Should they build a shrine? A statue? The ideas grow wilder with each suggestion. An older senator finally stands, raising his trembling hands. Let us not forget, he declares, that while men slept, the sacred geese kept vigil. Rome owes her life to the goddess Juno, and to her chosen flock. The chamber erupts in murmurs of agreement. Plans are made to hold a festival when the siege ends. Offerings will be given. A procession will honor the birds who saved the city. You can already imagine it, Romans marching through the streets, carrying garlands of flowers, with geese leading the parade like divine celebrities. Historians still argue whether this ritual, the procession of the sacred geese, was truly born from this night, or added later by writers eager to gild the story. But the image sticks in your mind anyway, feathers and laurels, devotion and absurdity all in one. It's so perfectly Roman it almost has to be true. That evening, as the sun dips low, you find Ilius sitting beside the temple steps. The geese waddle around him, nibbling from his hands. You sit beside him, watching quietly. You were right. You admit. They did guard us. He smiles gently. Faith takes strange forms. The goddess chooses her instruments wisely. You grin. Guess she prefers the noisy kind. He chuckles softly, then turns serious. Do you know the story of why these birds are sacred? You shake your head. They were once the companions of Juno herself, he says. When Rome first began, they were said to guard her temple, never allowing a thief or enemy near. To harm one was to insult the goddess directly. Their cry is her warning, a voice that wakes the city when mortals forget to watch. You glance toward the courtyard, where the geese are settling down again. Seems we needed that reminder. The night deepens, cool and quiet. For once, you can sleep without the tight knot of fear in your stomach. The geese, still murmuring softly, stand sentinel beneath the stars. You fall asleep to the sound of their slow, contented chatter, like guardians humming a lullaby. When morning comes, word spreads quickly. The Gauls have withdrawn from their positions around the north side of the hill. They've moved their camp further back, clearly shaken. Rome has won, at least for now. The soldiers gather in the courtyard, raising their weapons in salute toward the temple. Ilius leads a short prayer, thanking Juno and her divine messengers. They have saved our city, he proclaims, and so we honor them. Then comes the laughter. Someone brings out a wreath of laurel leaves and, with great ceremony, places it around the neck of the boldest goose. The bird honks loudly, strutting in a slow circle like a conquering general. The crowd cheers. Should we knight it? Livia jokes. Too late. You reply. I think it just promoted itself, even in the midst of ruin. The Romans have found a way to celebrate, to make meaning from madness. It's what they do best, take disaster and sculpt it into legend. As the day fades, you walk to the edge of the wall again. The city below is still wounded, still scarred. But in that moment, it doesn't feel defeated. You close your eyes and imagine how this story will sound centuries from now, how poets will tell it, how children will laugh at the idea that geese saved Rome. And yet, somewhere deep inside, they'll also understand the truth of it, that salvation often comes from where it's least expected. You look once more at the temple. The geese are quiet now, nestled together in sleep, their feathers glowing faintly in the moonlight. You whisper, "Rest well, little guardians. You've earned it." The wind shifts, carrying the faint echo of a honk, soft, almost like a sigh. You smile. Maybe the goddess really is listening. Morning breaks with a new kind of energy, one that tastes like defiance and burned wood. You stretch your aching arms, still half expecting to hear the Gauls charging again. But instead, there's a strange quiet. The quiet before Rome decides to strike back. You stand with the other defenders near the ridge, looking down at the scattered Gauls below. Their campfire smoke rises thin and nervous. They're restless, arguing, waving their hands at the slope that defeated them. You can tell they hate the idea that mere geese outsmarted them. It bruises their warrior pride. Look at them. Livia mutters beside you, squinting. They don't know whether to try again or to roast the birds. You laugh under your breath. If they do, Juno herself might smite them with a lightning bolt. Then comes the shout, a rally call from the commander, Marcus Manlius Capitolinus, the same soldier who woke and fought when the geese cried out. His armor glints in the light, dented but gleaming. He looks like exhaustion carved into a statue. Today, he says, voice echoing down the hill, we remind the Gauls who Rome really is. You grip your spear. The air feels electric. The Gauls make the first move, sending a probing line up the slope, young fighters, testing Roman resolve. They're met with silence. No arrows. No taunts. You and the others crouch low behind the fortifications. When the attackers reach halfway, Manlius gives a sharp signal. The hill explodes in motion, rocks tumble, spears whistle through the air, shields rise like scales of a metal beast. You feel the ground shudder as men surge forward, shouting the same word again and again, Roma, Roma. You charge with them, heart pounding, half from fear, half from fury. The world becomes sound and dust and the sharp clash of metal. You drive your spear downward, push, pull back, strike again. Around you, men fight not for glory but survival. Every breath feels borrowed, every heartbeat stolen. One Gaul rushes at you, swinging wildly. You duck, feel the wind of his blade slice past your ear, then shove him back with the butt of your spear. He stumbles, slips on the stones, and vanishes down the slope. The sound of his fall is swallowed by the roar below. By the time the sun is fully risen, the attack collapses. The Gauls retreat, dragging their wounded. You can almost taste their frustration. They came expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found a city that refuses to die. As the defenders cheer, someone brings out one of the sacred geese again, lifting it high like a living standard. The bird flaps its wings dramatically, honking as if commanding the troops. You can't help laughing even as your arms tremble from fatigue. That one's our general now, Livius says, grinning. I'd follow it. You reply. At least it knows when to sound the alarm. Historians still argue whether this counterattack truly happened the very next morning or days later, after negotiations began. But in your version, the version whispered around fires and passed down through centuries, it happens today. While the memory of the goose's cry still rings in everyone's ears. Later, you sit with Manlius, who's wiping grime from his blade. His hands shake, not from fear, but from the adrenaline crash. You heard it too, didn't you? He asks. The goose, he nods. When it cried out. I swear. It wasn't just sound, it was command. Like something divine snapping us awake. You smile faintly. So Juno's messenger gave orders. And we obeyed. He laughs hoarsely. Exactly. Then he grows quiet. But you know. One day. No one will believe it. They'll think it's some drunk soldier's tale. Who'll take a goose seriously? You glance toward the temple. Where the birds still waddle about. Blissfully unaware of their legend. Rome will. You say. We remember strange things. That's what keeps us alive. By midday. The Gauls try once more, half-heartedly this time. A few volleys of arrows. Some shouted threats. You respond with arrows of your own. But they fall short. Eventually. The barbarians drift back to their camp. You can feel the shift. The siege isn't over. But the momentum has changed. Inside the fortress. Spirits lift. Men share crusts of bread. Someone breaks into a victory song. And even the most stoic soldiers start to smile. The priests move through the crowd. Blessing everyone they pass. The goddess stands with you. They murmur. You glance at the geese again. Now perched high along the temple roof. Their feathers glow like silver in the afternoon light. For all their squawking and mess. They've become the beating heart of the city's hope. That evening. Ilius joins you by the parapet. They say the Gauls are shaken. He whispers. Some claim they saw omens, ghosts walking the ruined streets below. Ghosts? You ask. Amused. He nods solemnly. The spirits of old Rome. Rising to protect their home. You chuckle. Or maybe it was just moonlight on armor, maybe. He admits. But faith doesn't always need proof. You watch the fading sky. Streaked with orange and violet. You think Juno's still watching? He glances at the temple. She never left. Night settles slowly. Fires burn low. The city seems to breathe again. Though every breath is still cautious. Wary. You curl up near the wall. Too exhausted to care about the hard stone beneath you. Just before sleep takes you. You hear one last honk echo through the darkness, short. Sharp. But almost playful this time. You smile. Half asleep. It feels less like a warning now. And more like reassurance. The siege will drag on. And Rome will still suffer before it's free. But in this moment, the hill feels sacred, not just because of temples and gods. But because something small, ridiculous, and miraculous decided to save it. And as your eyes close, one thought drifts lazily through your mind, maybe heroes don't always wear armor. Sometimes. They just need wings and the nerve to make noise at the right time. The next morning begins with laughter, real, unguarded laughter. The kind that startles you because you've nearly forgotten how it sounds. It rolls across the Capitoline hill like sunlight through fog. Rome, though battered and hungry, has found its humor again. You wake to find the temple courtyard crowded. Soldiers, priests, and even a few dignified senators stand shoulder to shoulder, grinning at the spectacle before them. There, in the center, sits a row of geese, puffed up, gleaming white, and absolutely regal. Garlands of laurel and ivy drape around their necks. Someone has even polished a tiny bronze bowl to serve as their banquet, and nearby, chained to the wall, a group of dogs stare on with what can only be described as canine despair. Livia nudges you, smirking. So it's true. Then? They're honoring the geese and punishing the dogs. You nod, still half in disbelief. Welcome to Rome, where justice now honks. The crowd bursts into applause as a priest steps forward. Today, he declares in a voice so grand it could wake Jupiter himself, we celebrate the vigilance of the sacred geese of Juno, whose cries saved this city from ruin. Let their example remind all creatures of their duty to the gods, and to Rome. He gestures dramatically toward the dogs. And as for those who slept when they should have guarded, his tone grows mock serious. Let them be paraded. so all may learn from their failure. The soldiers roar with laughter. You can't help but join in as two unfortunate mutts are led around with little wooden signs hanging from their collars that read Dormividum Roma periclitibata, I slept while Rome was in danger. The dogs, tails low, seem utterly baffled by their newfound fame. It's ridiculous. It's theatrical. And somehow, it's exactly what everyone needs. Historians still argue whether this festival of the geese was a spontaneous act of gratitude or a later ritualized story. But to you, standing amid laughter, incense, and absurd ceremony, it feels too vivid to be myth. The Romans are experts at turning chaos into ritual. If they can't control the world, they'll at least throw a parade for it. As the celebration continues, you wander closer to the temple steps. Ileus, the young priest, beams with pride as he sprinkles sacred water around the geese. They are now honored as guardians of the Capitoline, he explains. Their descendants will forever be kept here, sacred to Juno monitor. You repeat, rolling the word around. The same name that'll one day be used for the mint. Right? He smiles. Exactly. From this very temple, the goddess's name will bless the creation of money, an eternal reminder that faith and fortune walk together. You grin. So, in a way, these geese are responsible for the future economy of Rome. Ileus blinks. When you say it like that, yeah. You interrupt. It sounds completely insane, but it's also perfect. The Romans will carry this story forward, feathered and shining, as proof that divine protection can come from anywhere, even a bird with an attitude. As noon passes, the laughter fades into conversation. Soldiers sit in clusters, swapping exaggerated retellings of the night's events. You overhear one man swearing that the goose's honk sounded exactly like a war horn, while another insists he saw the bird glowing with divine light. Historians will never believe us. You murmur to Livia, good. She says. Let them argue. That's what keeps stories alive. She's right. Of course. And while scholars in centuries to come will debate every detail, the number of Gauls, the truth of the attack, whether the goose was truly sacred, you know what really matters, in the darkest hour. Something pure and unexpected cut through fear like sunlight through smoke. That night, the mood shifts again. The fires burn warmer. Food, though still scarce, is shared more freely. Someone brings out a battered lyre. And soon a slow, lilting tune drifts through the air. You sit near the temple wall, staring up at the stars, belly full of the meager grain ration and heart strangely light. Ileus joins you, sitting cross-legged. They'll talk about this for generations. He says quietly, the night when a goose saved Rome. You chuckle. Makes us sound like the punchline of a divine joke. Perhaps that's what faith is. He replies. Finding meaning in the ridiculous. You glance toward the geese, now asleep, their heads tucked under wings. Do you think they even know what they did? He shakes his head. No. But maybe that's why it's beautiful. They acted by nature. And in doing so, they became instruments of destiny. His words linger as you close your eyes. Nature, destiny, divine comedy, it all swirls together in the strange alchemy of Roman belief. You realize that this story will never just be about birds. It's about vigilance, humility, and how even the smallest voice can change the course of an empire. In the distance, faint thunder rolls over the hills. You imagine Juno herself smiling, her temple safe, her messengers content. The next morning, you wake to find the air clearer than it's been in weeks. The stench of decay is fading, replaced by the smell of fresh rain. A new rumor spreads among the guards, the Gauls are growing restless. Supplies are low, disease stalks their camp. The tide, it seems, is turning, and as you stand at the wall once more, watching the light spill over the battered city below, you realize something profound. The siege might have scarred Rome, but it also stitched something new into its soul. The geese still waddle across the courtyard, blissfully unaware that they've become symbols of divine protection and Roman identity. Yet, in their honking simplicity, they embody what the people have rediscovered, that even when the world burns, vigilance, humor, and faith can keep the heart of a civilization alive. You smile softly. Not bad. Little heroes. You whisper. Not bad at all. The days blur into a tense stillness. The Gauls, once so fierce and relentless, now seem ghost-like, figures moving slowly through the haze beyond the walls. Their armor dull, their tempers fraying. You can feel the shift in their energy. Hunger gnaws at both armies. But the Gauls suffer worse. Even barbarians can't live on rage alone. Down below, the city's ruins bake under the midday sun. Crows circle lazily over the forum, which now looks less like a heart of civilization and more like a graveyard of ambition. From your perch atop the Capitoline Hill, you can see the broken outlines of temples, the gutted houses, the cracked marble statues staring blankly toward the horizon. Rome is alive, but barely. Manlius stands beside you, silent. His once polished armor is a dull bronze now, scratched and scarred. We can't hold forever, he mutters. The people are weak. Our grain's near gone. But the Gauls, they're bleeding too. He's right. The barbarians are tired, restless, and beginning to bicker among themselves. Word drifts up the hill that Brennus, their leader, has begun to talk of negotiation. The moment you hear it, you feel a mix of relief and resentment. After all this, after blood and hunger and gods and geese, it might end with words. That evening, a delegation of Romans descends the hill under a white flag. You watch them go, their thin forms silhouetted against the smoky sky. The silence as they vanish into the Gaulish camp is suffocating. Even the geese seem to sense the gravity of it. Falling unusually quiet. Hours later, when the envoys return, the news spreads like wildfire. Brennus will spare what remains of Rome, but only for a price, a heavy one, gold. You gather around as the senators explain it. The Gauls demand 1,000 pounds of gold to leave the city untouched, a ransom for Rome's freedom. One mutters bitterly. The word ransom tastes wrong in every mouth. It's not how Rome thinks of itself. Rome conquers, it does not pay. Yet, here you are, broken, besieged, bargaining. Do we have that much? Someone asks. Barely, comes the grim reply. If we melt temple offerings and private hoards together. Perhaps. You glance toward the temple of Juno, where the sacred geese sleep soundly. Even divine guardians can't squawk gold into existence. The next day, preparations begin. Roman citizens, men, women, even children, trudge through the ruined streets carrying coins, jewelry, and heirlooms. The clang of melted metal fills the air. Priests weep as they strip the gold leaf from altars. You help carry heavy ingots to the plain below the hill, where the Gauls have set up scales. It's there that the famous scene unfolds. Brennus stands by the scales, a towering figure with a thick beard and a grin that doesn't reach his eyes. He watches as the Romans lay the gold upon the balance, piece by piece. His men jeer and laugh, tossing insults in their guttural tongue. You clench your fists but say nothing. Finally, one of the Roman envoys steps forward. It's all there, he says, voice tight. 1,000 pounds. Brennus squints at the scale, then gestures to his men. They add extra weights, heavy iron chunks, obviously rigged. The scale tips instantly. It's not fair. A senator shouts. You've tampered with the balance. Brennus only smiles wider. He draws his sword, lets it clatter onto the scale with a metallic clang, and says the words that will echo through history. Vae victis, woe to the vanquished. The phrase lands like a blow. You can feel it reverberate in your bones. Rome has been humbled. Not by a god. Not by fate. But by a man who knows the power of humiliation. Manlius mutters beside you. Remember this. Rome never forgets its debts. Historians still argue about what happened next. Some claim that before the gold was even fully weighed, Roman reinforcements arrived, fresh legions led by Camillus, the exiled general who'd been gathering strength in the countryside. Others say the ransom was paid in full before Camillus returned to drive the Gauls out. You stand there, watching the tension crackle like lightning. And then, whether by providence or timing, Camillus appears. He rides in from the west, flanked by soldiers wearing the old discipline of Rome like armor itself. The crowd parts as he dismounts, his face carved in grim determination. Rome pays no ransom to barbarians, he declares, his voice booming across the square. We redeem her with steel, not gold. The Gauls don't understand Latin, but they understand tone. Brennus scowls, reaching for his sword. What follows is chaos. The Romans surge forward. The air fills with shouts, arrows, the deafening clash of vengeance finally unleashed. You dive behind a fallen column as the battle spills across the ruined forum. Camillus moves through the fray like a storm-given flesh. By dusk, it's over. The Gauls scatter, fleeing with whatever plunder they can carry. Brennus himself disappears into the hills, his legend fading with him. When the dust settles, you stand in the broken sunlight beside Manlius. The scales lie overturned, the gold scattered and gleaming in the dirt. Vae victis, you whisper, kicking one of the weights aside. Woe to the vanquished, and woe to those who try to cheat Rome. Manlius smiles faintly. She always finds her balance. The soldiers cheer as Camillus raises his sword. Rome lives, he shouts. And for the first time in what feels like an eternity, the city answers, not with fear, but with triumph. Later that night, you return to the Capitoline Hill. The geese are calm again, tucked beneath the temple eaves. You think about how this all began. With a cry in the dark and the courage to listen, you whisper to the quiet city below. You've been ransomed by feathers, steel, and stubborn pride, and though no one else hears, you swear the faintest honk echoes back in agreement. The morning after the final battle dawns in silence. For once, there are no horns, no shouting, no sound of boots clattering against stone. The Gauls are gone, truly gone this time, and Rome, stunned and hollow-eyed, stands blinking in the strange stillness of survival. You walk through the ruins, your sandals crunching on shattered pottery and ash. The smell of smoke lingers, but beneath it there's something else, fresh earth, wet from the night's rain. For the first time in weeks, you hear birds that aren't sacred, just ordinary sparrows fluttering among the ruins as if to say, life goes on. All around you, people begin to emerge from hiding. Old women clutch each other, sobbing. Children chase each other through the rubble. Soldiers, their faces gaunt and bearded, wander in dazed amazement at the city still standing beneath their feet. Livia joins you, wiping dust from her face. We survived, she says softly, almost not believing it. Barely, you reply. But Rome breathes again. She nods, staring out toward the hills. And the world will never forget this. Not the gold, not the geese, not a single broken stone. She's right. Already, stories are spreading. The night of the honking geese, the unjust ransom, Camillus's miraculous return. Each tale twists a little in the retelling, like vines curling around truth. You can almost hear the future historians sharpening their quills already. The next few days are a blur of rebuilding. You join the crowds carrying stones, patching walls, clearing burned debris from the streets. Everywhere, the same chant rises from weary throats. Roma renascitur, Rome is reborn. There's something defiant about it. You can feel it in your bones. The Senate meets once more in the open air. Since their old hall lies in ruins, they stand on the steps of what's left of the Temple of Saturn. Robes ragged, faces grim but proud. Camillus addresses the crowd, his voice echoing over the cracked marble. Romans, he says, Our city has been wounded, but not destroyed. The gods have tested us, and we endure. From this day forward, Rome shall rise greater than before, stronger walls, wiser hearts, and memories that will not fade. The crowd erupts in cheers, tired but fervent. For once, you believe it. Later, you visit the Capitoline Hill. The temple of Juno, though scorched, still stands, a survivor like the city itself. The sacred geese strut in the courtyard, seemingly oblivious to their fame. Someone has built them a small marble basin, their new pond gleaming in the sunlight. Ilius greets you there, robes singed and eyes bright. The goddess kept her promise. He says simply, you nod, watching one goose dip its head into the water, ripples shimmering outward. She did more than that. She reminded us we're never as alone as we think. He smiles. The geese will stay here always now. Their descendants will guard this temple for centuries. They are part of Rome's soul, along with the stories. You add. I bet poets are already turning them into epics. Historians still argue whether the Romans truly rebuilt their city exactly where it stood or whether they briefly considered relocating entirely, moving their capital elsewhere, leaving the ruins to the crows. But whether by pride or prophecy, the people of Rome refused to abandon their home. You see it firsthand, men hauling fresh blocks of tufa to rebuild the walls, women planting herbs in scorched courtyards, children playing atop piles of brick that, one day, will be houses again. Rome refuses to die. At night, the stars return, clearer now that the smoke has lifted. You sit near the temple, listening to the gentle murmur of the city, slowly remembering how to live. A soldier passes by with a crude wooden carving of a goose tied to his belt like a talisman. For luck, he says, smiling sheepishly. Can't hurt, you grin. Just don't let it start honking. He laughs and walks on, leaving you alone with the soft sounds of rebuilding. Hammer strikes, hushed voices, the rhythmic scrape of tools. It's the music of survival. Weeks pass, and the ruins begin to transform. A new forum rises from the rubble. Statues are cleaned and re-erected. Someone paints a mural of Juno's temple, with golden geese at her feet, on a surviving wall. You catch people stopping to touch it for luck. One morning, you stand atop the rebuilt wall and look out at the horizon. The hills glow green again. Smoke no longer marks the sky. You breathe in deep. The air sharp and clean. We did it. You whisper. Livia appears beside you. Hair tied back. Arms crossed. For now. Rome doesn't stay quiet long. You chuckle. Wouldn't be Rome if it did. There's talk of celebration soon, a great festival to honor the gods. Camillus. And, of course, the sacred geese. The Senate votes to dedicate a special feast each year to commemorate the saving of the Capitoline Hill. The tradition will stretch on for centuries. Garlands, processions, laughter, and the ever-present echo of that miraculous honk. The old priest Ilius calls it the dies manati, the day of Juno the advisor. Because, he tells you, it was her voice, through her messengers, that warned us in our sleep. You tilt your head. And because we could all use better advice next time. He chuckles. Exactly. When you finally leave the temple that night, the city feels different, less a ruin, more a rebirth. The geese murmur softly behind you, settling into their new home. Their cries, once frantic alarms, now sound like lullabies. You pause at the edge of the hill, gazing down at Rome. Torches flicker like constellations across its bones. You realize the city will always rebuild, always reinvent itself. That's the real miracle, not the honk, not the gold, not even the victory, but the relentless refusal to stay broken. Rome lives. You whisper into the wind. And so do we. And somewhere behind you, one of the sacred geese lets out a gentle, contented honk, as if agreeing that yes, even empires need bedtime reassurance sometimes. Years have passed. And the story of the goose that saved Rome has already begun to drift toward legend. You can feel it in the way people tell it, no longer as a memory of fear and hunger, but as a story of triumph and divine favor. The scars of the siege are fading from stone, if not from the collective imagination. And in that space between history and myth, the goose grows larger than life. You stroll through the bustling forum on a bright afternoon. The marble is clean now, the air filled with the familiar sound of merchants calling, coins clinking, and fountains bubbling. Rome, reborn, struts through her streets with all the pride of a city that has stared down destruction and decided to build temples over the ashes. A street performer has gathered a crowd near the statue of Camillus. He stands on a crate, waving his arms theatrically. So there they were. He booms. The fierce Gauls, creeping in the dead of night. Not a man stirred. Not a sword was drawn, until, praise be, the sacred geese of Juno awoke and cried out. The crowd cheers. He honks dramatically, flapping his arms like wings. Children squeal with laughter, older citizens nod solemnly. It's absurd and reverent all at once, just how Romans like their stories. You smile, leaning against a pillar, listening. The performer's version has grown fantastical. Now, he claims the geese summoned a divine wind that swept the Gauls from the walls. He insists that Juno herself appeared in a beam of light, guiding the defenders to victory. The people drink it in. You murmur under your breath. That's not how it happened. A grey-haired woman beside you smiles. Maybe not. But it's how it should have happened. And there it is, the eternal Roman instinct to turn survival into epic poetry. Historians still argue whether Camillus truly returned in time to stop the ransom, or whether later generations invented that moment to spare Rome's pride. Some claim the entire episode of the geese was embellished centuries later, a metaphor for divine vigilance. But even if the details blur, the story's spirit endures. You visit the temple of Juno again. It's grander now. Its columns polished. Its roof gilded anew. Inside, the sacred geese waddle beneath painted frescoes showing their heroic ancestors. Children press offerings of bread at the altar. Priests murmur hymns. The geese preen, clearly aware that they are celebrities of the divine kind. Ileus, older, slower, but still sharp, greets you with a grin. You see, they've outlived kings, generals, and fashions. The goddess rewards loyalty. You chuckle. And noise. He laughs softly. Sometimes they are the same thing. He leads you to the back of the temple, where a young apprentice is chiseling a new inscription into a marble slab. It reads, "When men slept, the voice of Juno spoke through her guardians, and Rome was saved." You run your hand along the fresh letters. So that's what we'll tell the future. Then, Ileus shrugs. Truth enough to live by. Outside, you wander toward the art stalls where painters sell frescoes and mosaics of the famous night. In one, the geese stand radiant against a dark sky. Their wings spread wide as lightning splits the heavens. In another, they're perched heroically above a fallen Gaul, their eyes glowing gold. You buy a small clay amulet shaped like a goose, mostly for the joke, but also because part of you feels it's earned its place among Rome's symbols. You slip it into your tunic pocket and keep walking along the streets. You hear the story everywhere, told by parents to children, carved into the sides of temples, even used in speeches to remind citizens of vigilance and unity. Stay awake like the sacred geese, a senator declares during a debate. Guard Rome against complacency. The metaphor sticks. Over time, the legend grows so pervasive that even centuries later, during festivals, Romans will still parade live geese through the city, adorned with gold ribbons and laurel crowns. Some laugh, some pray, but all remember. You wander past a sculptor's workshop and stop to watch him carve. The statue he's shaping shows Juno herself standing tall, serene, and at her feet, a goose looks upward, mid-honk, wings half spread. For the new shrine, the sculptor says proudly, They say it will face the sunrise. Juno and her messenger. Together forever. You study it for a long moment. He looks brave. You say, the sculptor grins. He was brave. Or at least loud enough to seem so. You leave the workshop smiling. The sunlight catching on the marble dust in the air. That night, the festival begins. The Ferie Juno Munity. Dedicated to Juno the Warner. The streets fill with torches and garlands. Citizens carry offerings of grain and honey. Musicians play soft flutes as the sacred procession begins, priests leading the way. Then the geese. Then the senators. Then the people. You walk among them. The soft flicker of firelight painting gold across faces and feathers alike. Children toss flower petals, someone chants. Juno watches. Rome endures. The geese honk as they move. Their cries oddly rhythmic. Almost ceremonial. The crowd joins in. Laughing. Clapping. Following the noise as if it were divine music. It's strange. You think. How easily terror becomes tradition. How a night of fear becomes a festival of joy. But maybe that's what humans are best at, transforming the unbearable into something beautiful. You look up at the temple's glowing facade and whisper. You did it. Little guardians. You became a legend, and as the final chant fades into the warm Roman night, a single goose at the front of the procession pauses, turns its head toward you, and lets out one sharp, echoing honk, just one. The crowd erupts in laughter. And you can't help but laugh too. History will go on debating the details. Was it divine intervention? Chance? Animal instinct? But you know better, sometimes. Fate just wears feathers. Decades roll by. And Rome expands once again, outward. Upward. Endlessly ambitious. The scars of the Gallic sack have long since been buried under marble. Politics. And pride. Yet the story of the sacred geese remains. Etched deep into the city's heartbeat. You see their image everywhere, on coins. On temple walls. Even carved into soldiers' shields as a charm against surprise. You're older now. Though you try not to act it. The forum still hums with the same restless energy. But you walk through it slower. More aware of the echoes between past and present. Each statue. Each stone seems to whisper, remember. One afternoon, you find yourself standing on the Capitoline Hill again, the same ground where, years ago, you thought the world was ending. The temple of Juno glows in the late sun. Its steps worn smooth by generations of feet. The geese still waddle in the courtyard. Descendants of those sacred few who changed Rome's fate. A young boy runs past you, chasing one with a crust of bread. Careful, his mother calls, laughing. They're protectors of the city. Don't tease them, you smile. The bird honks indignantly and struts off. Feathers ruffled but dignity intact. Some things never change. You climb the steps and sit where you once hid during the siege. Below, Rome spreads out like a living mosaic, rooftops glinting. Streets alive with color. The Tiber winding lazily through it all. You breathe in the warm air and think how the city's heartbeat never truly stopped, it just learned to pause. Then resume with more determination. Ileus's apprentice, now an old priest himself, approaches with a kind smile. You come here often. Friend, old habits. You say. Sometimes I think I still hear them, those geese. That night, he chuckles. You and half of Rome. The legend has become a lullaby now. We tell it to children to teach them courage, and to light sleepers. So they'll forgive the noise. You laugh quietly. The sound blending with the gentle cooing nearby. Historians still argue whether the story happened exactly as told. He continues. Some say it was one goose. Others say 10. Some insist Camillus returned too late. Others swear he arrived in time to drive the Gauls away. Maybe they're all right. You muse. Or maybe none are. But the story's what matters now. He nods. Rome survives on stories. They're the mortar between our stones. You stay there for a while, watching the sun drift lower. Below, The evening market is beginning to buzz. And you can smell roasted chestnuts and olive oil wafting up from the stalls. A soft breeze stirs the laurel trees. The moment feels impossibly peaceful, almost sacred. Then, faintly, you hear it, a single honk echoing across the courtyard. It makes you laugh out loud. Still on duty, you whisper. The priest smiles knowingly. Always, as twilight settles, the city begins to glow in soft gold. Torches flicker along the walls rebuilt long ago. And you remember the night those same stones shook with fear and fire. You remember the faces, hungry, desperate, defiant. And somehow, you feel grateful for every one of them. Rome has learned to live with its ghosts. They walk beside her now, whispering lessons through marble halls and temple courtyards. You think of the old saying, Rome eterna est. Rome is eternal. Maybe not because it can't fall, but because it always gets back up. You rise, stretch, and glance once more toward the geese. They're settling in for the night. Heads tucked under wings, feathers gleaming faintly in the moonlight. The city below hums like a lullaby. That same low murmur that always follows survival, and for the first time in a long while, you feel a deep, quiet peace. You survived. Rome survived. And that's enough. You start down the steps. The last rays of sunlight following you. Somewhere, in the distance, a child repeats the story of the geese to a group of younger ones, complete with dramatic honking and wide-eyed gasps. The next generation of Romans learning to remember. You smile. History never really ends, it just changes narrators. So, as the night softens around you, picture the city of Rome breathing gently beneath the stars. The marble has cooled. The torches flicker low. And even the Tiber seems to hush its song. Somewhere on the Capitoline Hill, the sacred geese nestle close together, their soft feathers rustling with every sigh of the wind. They don't know their legends, they're just home. Safe. Alive. You close your eyes and imagine their warmth. The faint rhythm of their breathing blending with the quiet heartbeat of the eternal city. Once, their cries shattered the silence of terror. Now, their peace fills the silence of rest. The streets below are calm. The stones heavy with centuries of stories. The people of Rome, merchants, priests, soldiers, dreamers, sleep under the same sky that watched their ancestors fight and rebuild. You can almost feel that endurance, that strange Roman stubbornness, humming like a lullaby through time. Maybe that's the real lesson tonight, not the battles or the heroes, not even the golden geese, but the way the world keeps finding reasons to continue, to laugh again, to rebuild, to sing about the night when all seemed lost and one ridiculous noise saved everything. So, let that image settle into your mind, a quiet city, the faint coo of geese, the stars above turning slowly over Rome. You breathe in, you breathe out. The story ends. But the calm lingers, warm, steady, eternal. Sweet dreams, friend.